A new biography about George H.W. Bush shows a side of the president that we've never seen before. Now, he said Cheney, quote, built his own empire, and he's very hard line and different than when we worked together. He also said about Rumsfeld that he's arrogant and he served the president badly. Rumsfeld showed a whole lot of class when he responded by saying the following, quote, Bush 41 is getting up in years and misjudges Bush 43, who I found made his own decisions. Cheney just brushed off Bush's comments. Once again, Jeb, though, in the position of having to defend brother and, in between that, dad. Now, here's what he had to say about the whole issue.
My brother's a big boy. His administration was shaped by his thinking, his reaction to the attack on 9/11.
Now, it's fascinating, a lot of things. Very credible writer here, John Meacham, who did the book. So nobody's saying that the quotes were taken out of context or anything of that sort. It's a complicated history, not just between the Bushes, but also between Bush and Rumsfeld. They hated each other for years here. But what stuck to me to a certain degree was, how did Rumsfeld even get in this orbit? Think about it. If your old man can't stand a guy, why would you make him your defense secretary? You know, I mean, well, in a lot of ways, isn't that even?
Now we're opening up the whole psychological, relationship.
Well, put us on the couch here. Go ahead.
No, I mean, which of course Junior didn't want to be put on the couch, but there was a lot of that was going on apparently. That, you don't like that guy? Well, I'll take him, Dad. And there was books written about that. I find, that this is the thing that Jeff Bush should have realized when he got into this thing, that he was going to have to deal with questions and all the issues surrounding his brother, who arguably was the worst president we've ever had.
Oh, I want to start. But you know what? Can I say something?
Huh?
He's 91.
I'm sorry.
He's a public servant. Whether you love or you're not a fan of the elder Bush, who is Rumsfeld to be making a comment about it? He's up there in years.
Well,
that was a cheap shot, right?
Well, he's up there in years too.
That's Romney. Look, both Dick Cheney and Romney are very harsh. They don't hold their tongue. They're not. They aren't somebody who you go and have lunch with and you don't want to hear the truth. Okay, that's just their personality, and we all know that. Why this is a big issue, I don't know. And I think that's because
as Phil, in the middle of his son's campaign.
Hillary Clinton doesn't answer for Bill Clinton's faults, and I can go over a number of those, but we don't have time for the show. But to Phil's point, President Bush, 43, was a polarizing figure, and so anything that happens with that in the Bush administration,
but
his brother has to answer for.
The big difference,
that's just not fair.
I agree with you, except here's the problem. Dad decided to go do a book. This quote didn't come out of thin air here. Dad decided to go talk about Bush's his son's handlers, and the premise being that they gave not only bad advice, but they steered his son in the wrong direction. Makes the boy doesn't look like he makes his own decisions.
I think George Sr., 41, has to defend his own legacy too. I mean, he stopped. He didn't go into Baghdad. He stopped.
This is odd timing, though. This is internal Republican politics. 41 could not be the Republican nominee now. 43 was beloved by the base. So this is also about that internal dialogue, and by all accounts, 41 is horrified at what's happened and where the Republican Party is, which is fair and not fair depending on your perspective. But this is as much about.
He's horrified about what happened in Iraq too.
Yeah.
Well, then, you only get to make decisions with the information you have at the time.
Right.
And
they had the foreign policy.
The foreign policy
Bush
folks that he was pushing back against 41 are the ones who are running the Republican Party now. Right. And the Hawks, the New Yorker just had the LRB had a whole big article on this and where, when Jeb had more moderates around him, the right and the funders and were making noise about this doesn't fit with our worldview and you're going to be dead in the water, and then the more moderates
poor Jeb Bush. When it rains, it pours. That saying, this couldn't come at a worse time, and it just reinforces everything that's going wrong with his candidacy, and again tying him to his brother. And
I don't think he has to answer for his brother. He does not, or his father. Right. They were their own presidents. They were their own man. Here's what my administration is going to look like. Like I said, Hillary Clinton doesn't answer for Bill, and she was very much a part of that administration. more so than Jeb Bush was
Well,
part of
I'll
his
give you one. I'll give you one
and
that
his
we can all
brothers.
agree on. If you think that's a strange story, this one's even weirder. Ben Carson's campaign, it's going into cuckoo land. All right. When is the last time you heard a major presidential candidate, let alone a front runner, admit to stuff like this?
I know that you said that this feels like a witch hunt, what's happening over at CNN, but let me ask you flat out whether you stand by the claim that you, as a young man, as a 14-year-old boy, attempted to stab another boy and attacked your mother with a hammer.
Those claims are absolutely true. You know, I am 100% sure that they are true. And this is simply an attempt to smear and to deflect the argument to something else.
And Dominic, there's the West Point story today that he had claimed that he had a meeting with Miss Westmoreland in 1969, and that Westmoreland said, you know what, you have a full admission and a full scholarship to West Point. West Point has no record of that at all. Now the Carson campaign is backpedaling off of that story.
And Donald Trump is all over
but can I ask you this? Of course he is. But who makes up a story about attacking your mom with a hammer and stabbing a kid?
The whole thing is warped, if you ask me.
It's beyond warped. I don't know what the word for it.
Okay, in fairness to Dr. Carson, when you're doing a book, you gotta sensationalize some stuff. I see the look, but
I agree.
gotta
sell the book.
You gotta sell the book. But no, you got, and if you've led a boring life, you know,
which most people do.
But guess what, Dr. Carson, you're already considered a nut job by many, and you got to know when you're the leading presidential candidate.
But Dom, you
you're
didn't come
gonna
back to
be
my
vetted.
point, though.
Okay,
I get it. You're going to lie about getting into West Point. Makes you look good.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Who lies
about
about
hitting your
going
mama
after
with a
your mom
hammer?
with a hammer and stabbing a kid?
I don't. I guess
What's the upside?
Okay, I'm going to say what probably no one else will say. As a black kid from the hood, he's trying to look tough. And I can understand that, but chasing mama with a hammer, I mean, I don't get that part.
Yeah, look, his mom's not here today to contest that. I don't know if that's a lie or not, whether he went after his mom with a hammer or he stabbed a kid. That's kind of just to pursue that. Listen, I was a bad kid. I changed my life around. Whether that story is true or not, I don't know. The other thing about West Point, come on, we all know there's no scholarship to West Point.
Yeah, it's a free ride anyway.
It's a free ride.
That's right.
You have to be a candidate. It's an appointment to West Point.
Yeah,
so he was in ROTC in Detroit in high school. He was the top of his class in Detroit. He did meet General Westmoreland. Maybe he said, hey, but a guy like you should come to West Point. And perhaps 20 years later, after he wrote the book, he said, hey, I was offered an appointment. But that was not a lie that he was. I mean, he probably was offered some type of appointment.
This is when things like this come out, right? Like it turns out now Trump, he may have borrowed some money from my father. It was in the $9 million range. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot. And $9 million was like 9.4, 9.6. And by the way, not as like a 32-year-old person building a business. Apparently, he was in his 50s at the time, right? And he borrowed from his father's estate right after. So they did the math. We're going to see more of this, right?
Yes.
And you write a book, and then it comes back to haunt you, to bite you in the backside.
Richard,
it's a 20-year-old book.
as a proud member in good standing of the Republican Party, you're two front runners. Donald Trump don't have to say anything else. A guy making up stories about going after mama with a hammer and stabbing people and getting into West Point. I mean, this is where the party is right now.
Look, Santorum won Iowa. Huckabee was in the race in Iowa, New Hampshire. Huckabee's no longer even going to be able to compete in the race. We always have different front runners in the beginning of a Republican presidential candidate.
But what does it say about what the base likes right now?
It says that people want somebody from the outside bringing new ideas. We don't like the politicians who have promised this stuff and they're not performing it. We want somebody independent from the outside. That's what they're saying now. And come February, when the Iowa caucus happens and the New Hampshire primary happens, then they'll move to a more professional candidate with experience.
I get it.
Who says, I'm going to fight Washington.
Do you remember this crazy ever?
Well, I think the last time was kind of crazy too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
crazy?
This whole reality TV candidacy stuff that's going on started in the Republican primary
but then we
race
have
4 years
Eagleton
ago.
with the depression and the electroshock, and then there's always some version of it. But this is above and beyond.
Well, it's because we've got Trump in it now. You know, and
If
that
it
was
wasn't him,
really,
it'd be
But
somebody
Richard,
else.
your assessment is correct. The more I think about it, you're standing there on Fox News with Megyn Kelly. Dr. Carson, do you stand by the claim that you chased or hit your mother with a hammer?
Yes, I do.
And like a badge of honor, yes, a badge of yeah,
I defy anyone to say I didn't go after mom with a
yes,
hammer.
I
Yeah.
do.
Why are you making Megyn Kelly sound like P.T. Barnum? I don't understand.
Well, it certainly is a circus.
Okay, when we come back, a Westchester murder mystery, still a mystery. Real estate millionaire is suspected of killing his wife and 2 other people, but never convicted. Former Westchester DA Jeanine Pirro, though, not giving up, and she wants to get him and has a controversial new book about it. I'm going to ask Phil his thoughts here on the whole Durst case, once again getting the headlines, and for some really strange reasons as well. Stay with us.